good to see each of you this evening. We appreciate the presence of each one who is here, and we look forward to a study. And I think we only have two more, right, after this. So tonight's is going to be on the stonework that we've been talking about, and then we're going to continue that probably in the next lesson, and then the lesson after that hopefully will be the potter and his work, and that's about as far as we'll get with these shortened sessions. I mean, we go to class a week, and we take off a week. We go to class a week, and we take off a week. I've never taught like that before. So anyway, it's good to see each of you. Let's begin our class with prayer. Joe, would you lead us in prayer?
Father, we're grateful to you for this day, this lesson ever. We're thankful for this chance to be together and to study your word. We're thankful for Ferrell and the things that he has prepared. And we're grateful that we can spend this time studying the land, the life and Bible times. And we're grateful for the way that it helps us to understand your word, to gain a better feel for the things that you are presenting in it to us. We pray that through our study throughout this quarter, we will draw closer to you. We will learn the things that you have reserved for us to be more pleasing to you each and every day. So with all who are studying tonight in this building, the teachers, all of us as students, with us always, please forgive us our sins in God's name.
Amen. Well, that doesn't look like stonework, and it isn't. Some of it probably is originally. But I thought I'd show you this. I came across it and I thought I wanted to do a section, or would like to do a section on housing in Bible times. You know, we start with tents and we move up to other kinds of buildings, and there was a particular kind of house built during the Iron Age among the people of Israel. But I want to show you something here. This is at it used to be called the Semitic Museum, and it is on the grounds, I suppose, of Harvard University. It's at Cambridge, Massachusetts. So if you ever go to Boston, the Museum of Fine Arts is a good museum to go to. They've got a lot of archaeological things. And then also, this one is good, but it's had its name changed a few years ago. Semitic definitely says something about the Jews. And so they've changed that, and now it's the Harvard Museum of the Ancient Near East. And that covers a lot of other area. There are some things from Mesopotamia, as well as things from Israel and so on. One of the gentlemen there has worked a lot. In fact, it was kind of his life's work at Ascalon, and that's been very. They've got a lot of things from there as well. I don't know if it has a charge or not. I don't think it did when I was there, but it was a few years ago. Now, what they have done when you enter the museum is that they have built a house with one side missing. And it is a house that might have existed in 900, 1000 before Christ. And it could have happened even until the time of Christ, to think about what they have here. So let us look at some of the things that you would see. It has a second floor, so I will go to the second floor. Right there's right there, and you will see a ladder somewhere. I saw it this afternoon. Anybody see the ladder? Right there. So it has a ladder going up there, and not enough room to put in. I don't have the measurements of it, but you can go online. You can find this, but you got to remember the name of that museum, Harvard Museum of the Ancient Near East. And they actually have a kind of a walk you around to see a lot of the things that are there online. And so there could be sleeping upstairs. The family lives upstairs. When you look to the downstairs, you will find that it is mostly open. So here is an area that's open, and what do you see right over here? a goat or a sheep. Now, so the animals are down here. And now this already, even though this is the time of Solomon's temple, this would begin to give you a little bit of a clue when it comes to the matter of Jesus being born in a, what? Manger. See? There was no room in the inn. There were such things, but with the crowd that had to go down to be registered with the government, there was nothing like that. So you have the animals and other things that would be used around the farm and so on there, and that's basically it. Not a lot of furniture, not a lot of no TVs or anything of that sort. So, okay. Any questions about it before I move on from this? That's off the lesson a little bit, but I thought you'd enjoy that. Okay. Now, this piece of art is by a guy named Balaj. I've got 2 or 3 included either in this lesson or the next lesson by him. He charges very high for his art, but somehow or the other, I got acquainted with him through the blog and through email, and asked to use some of his material, and he agreed that I could use it. In return, of course, I said in advance, for telling people about your web page and all of that. So I was offering him something to give him a little more attention. He was new at this. He had done this for some books that I was aware of, drawing the art for them. And I found this one on my computer today that I had not remembered having, but it's just a reconstruction. And what are we looking at there? Inside a tomb. And what is the thing we're talking about up here at the top? Right there, what is that? I know it's a person, but what is the arco what? Arcosolium. Arcosolium. Jesus' tomb was like this. And also, we see down below, what are those things that are mentioned there, that are listed there? They're ossuaries. This is a coquine. The cutting into the wall is the coquine. And sometimes you could have 2 or 3 on each side and maybe 2 or 3 in the back. So it could be very large or very small. And this is significant. The way he has that drawn helps you understand it a little bit better than looking at the picture of something that's partly covered up and so on. So, very nice. Now, there you are at the museum again with the, where are we going? Okay, here's where we stopped the other night. This is at Dan, and we're talking about the work that goes on, and we talked about the gates and how tall the gates were, how they had, what was it they had on either side as you went in? Chambers, remember? And so we looked at the one at Hazor, we looked at the one at Megiddo, I think, and some of these have 2 chambers on each side. That would be a 4-chamber, or 2-chamber, 4-chamber altogether. Or they could have 3 on each side. That would be a 6-chamber. And so we looked at Hazor, and we looked at Gezer, and Megiddo, I believe, a little bit of information. Well, at the gate here at Dan, there was something found that was rather interesting and fits in with what we know in the Bible. The man who did the excavation here for many years, I'd say 15 to 30 years, I'm not sure exactly, and I heard him speak, I heard him tell the story of what I'm showing you now. He said that when they were working there, someone brought to him one of these right here. See that? In other words, just that round thing that looked like a bowl with a hole in it. So one of the workers brought that to him, or told him to come look at it. And he saw that, and then he wondered, what is that? They thought maybe that it was to hold a gate. In other words, it would be at the base of a gate, and then the gate would swing. So they had that and maybe something at the top that would help the gate swing. But they'd never seen anything of that sort. So then, as they continued, they had found the little step there, didn't know what it was. Then eventually, they found a second one of these bases. Then they found a third one, and then a fourth one. So it became obvious that these held up some kind of a canopy. So if you go to Dan today, or tonight, or tomorrow, well, you got 7 hours time change. So if you go, you will like to see this. And you probably will not see it like this. You'll just see the seat. And maybe some of these will be there. Maybe they will be. Maybe they've been removed to the museum. And so as they found those, they got that idea. And then making pictures is a matter of luck. You go, and if something new has been found, you get the picture. If something has been destroyed, you get the picture, but you lose your good picture. And I've had that happen. So you're interested in going as often as you can. Also, in going as many months of the year as you can. I have been to Israel every month of the year except October. I've just got to go. It's my life's dream. So it's a very hot time, so not many groups go. But I would like to go at that time. And so Carl Rasmussen, who does holylandphotos.org, you need to be writing that down, holylandphotos.org. And he has thousands of pictures online, free of charge, already for PowerPoint. If you teach a class anytime, anywhere, he's got 5,000 photos available for you. You just search for it. Now, I've been mentioning Todd Boland. He has a lot of photos online. And also, he sells a tremendous collection of photos that are available. And so, that's good. And a little later, I'm going to mention another source that you can get good photos as well. But many of them will be watermarked, so you need to be careful about that. So this is a drawing, again, by the man Balog, whatever his name is, I do not know. And he shows you a little more elaboration of what it might have looked like at the time that Old Testament events happened. And we had already mentioned that kings came here, sat in the gate. Judges sat in the gate. And so if you had a case before one of the judges, you would go to the gate. And right there at the gate, that's where he would be as well. Now, in our time, he's hidden in the back office. But they were there for the people. And so that was significant. Moving on. This is in Jerusalem. This was after the return, or at the time of the return from exile. That means we're talking about the time of Nehemiah. Because when he rebuilt the walls, not all of it had been destroyed, but it tells about the work, and it says that he worked as far as the broad wall. The broad wall already existed before the fall, and yet it was torn down. So what you are seeing here in this excavation exhibit, and see they did the excavation in Jerusalem. This has been true a lot of places. They did the excavation, and then after they secured the items that were the type that should be preserved, they either made them into a little museum exhibit, or what did they do? They covered them up with a whole building. So this one is right in the middle of relatively new apartment buildings. And that is the base or the foundation of the wall, the width of the wall. And now what you will see is the foundation and the original height of the wall. That is about 25 feet high. So I told you that the walls at Megiddo, or not Megiddo, but at Hazor were probably 15 feet high. This wall was about 25 feet high. So you can see the protection that people had around them with the wall. They wanted to be protected. The wall was important. Now, how does that relate to our lesson theme? Built of stone, correct. So it was built of stone, and that means that's one of the principal employment opportunities that people would have. And we'll go on to the next. We're going to talk again, mention briefly the grain storage. This one is the grain silo at Megiddo. I showed it to you when we talked about the grain that would be necessary at a public place where they had so many of the animals, had the horses, Solomon and Ahab did at different times during their reigns. And it took a lot of work to build that, just that alone. And so you can think about the depth of it. I don't know exactly what it was, but there's a railing at the top over there, and you are seeing the bottom, the very middle of it. And so it's a fairly large source. And I like these little exhibits they have all at many of the national parks. They have here the horse, because horses were there. They have the mangers where the horses would eat. Someone could go between this one and another one and feed the horses without getting kicked, and that would be very helpful. And so that's looking off into the Jezreel Valley. And the mountains that you see in the distance, that's Lower Galilee. Because after Megiddo, there's just the Jezreel Valley. And then after that, there is Lower Galilee and Nazareth, the city of Nazareth. It's not visible in this one, but it would be over to the right. Here's another one of the iron drawings, I call them, of the chariot and the horses. There's a record of the ones that Ahab provided when he fought against the Assyrians. He joined a confederacy of armies, and one of the Assyrian kings left a record of it and told the number of horses and chariots that he provided for the war. He says he defeated them, of course, or he wouldn't have told that. Now let's go to some water systems. What does that require? It requires people working. And often it requires doing this in what? In stone, because the country is mostly stone. So you have to do that. All right? Now, here's the one exception, and that's a spring. So this one is at Jericho. And it is referred to till this day as Elisha's spring. And there are several stories associated with Elisha, the prophet. And at the time when Elijah was going to be taken up into heaven, and Elisha wanted to have the mantle of Elijah to fall on him. In fact, he even said to the prophet before he was taken up, I want you to give me what portion? A double portion, not 1/4, a double portion. And what does that mean in Old Testament teaching? What is a double portion? What? The oldest son got that. And so therefore it is double. You get 2 portions really, and everybody else gets 1. And so he wanted that. He wanted something special from Elijah. And the Lord was involved in this and telling him what to do. And he comes back. He was at Jericho. He went away, and then he came back to Jericho, and there he began his work as a prophet. So that's a spring that's still there to this day. And right behind where the writing is, Elisha Spring, there is a building, and that covers the modern waterworks. Since Bible times until now, this spring provides the water for the city of Jericho. That's amazing, isn't it? That it's still available, the same water that they had at that time, and it's an adequate supply of it. If you don't have a spring, what do you have to do? Dig. So we could go to Jacob's well, for example, as an illustration of what one might find. This well, according to John chapter 4, was very deep. I believe it is about 120 feet deep. And so it's very deep. It goes back to the time of Jacob, who came there. I would say it says that he and his animals drank from this well. In other words, they all got their water there. So imagine then 120 feet and pulling that water up over and over and over for the family and they had a large family, and then also for the animals that they had. That would be the sheep, the goats, and so on, any cattle that they had. It would be that. When guides show this to people, it's a fairly large room in the sense that you could get a busload of 40 people in there. It'd be a little crowded, but you could. And then as soon as the guide is finished, the priest, if he's there, will try to sell you little bottles of water. I mean, well, how's he going to make his living? And not only the little bottles of water, but he's going to try to sell you postcards and booklets about it and so on. So that's up to you, because if you go on a tour, that will already be taken care of. That is the admission to pay to see this. It's in the basement of a church building now. And you can see it. Jacob's well, that's where Jesus met. It's real. It's genuine. Many scholars say that it is perhaps the most genuine thing that we have that we can say for sure was connected with one of the Bible characters. I think there are more than that, but nonetheless, this is one that is just absolute. There is no other well like it anywhere around, and it served the people of that region a great deal. Abraham had been there. We don't know, it was not at his time, but it came at the time of Jacob. Let's go to Jerusalem. We'll go to Hezekiah's tunnel. The tunnel was dug that connected Gihon Spring, which is where Solomon was when he was brought down. He wasn't brought down, but Nathan came down from David, you remember. And he said, you're going to be the king. The other brother that we've talked about, Absalom, he was down a little further south in the Kedron Valley, where the Kedron Valley joins with the valley of Hinnom and the valley of Gehenna. All three come together. And there's a little place that today is called Job's Well. I don't know why it's associated with Job, but Muslims seem to have an affection for it, the place. And so there's the place where they came for Absalom. And from the two places, if there's a lot of, that's our man, he's our man, then you could hear one another. See, it's close enough that a large crowd could easily be heard making these noises in the area. This pool, not the pool, but the pool is Gihon Spring. And in order to take the water to the south part of the city of David, they had to dig a tunnel. And the tunnel is 1,750 feet long. It is cut in solid rock. It is cut on a curve, not straight, and it is cut from either end. And where they met in the middle, there's only the smallest offset of the rock. The story is told, in fact, on the marker that tells about it that was left by Hezekiah. It was built in the days of Hezekiah. That's about 710 years before Christ. Again, I tell you, not all the smart engineers live in Tampa. See, there might be a few, but there were some back then too. So how far back are we talking? 2,200 years. How many years is it now? 2,300. I lost out on a couple of those. 2,300 and 17 or 700. So that would be how long ago that was built? 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years ago. That's an amazing piece of work. And also, the Pool of Siloam was built. This is fascinating because for years we thought that where the tunnel ends, and let's say it opens, a door opens, the tunnel is coming to right here. And then we walk out after we walk through this. And then when we are out there, we think this is it. There's some columns over here. There's some bases of columns that are missing. And we think, that's really nice. We've been through Hezekiah's tunnel. We have come to the Pool of Siloam. But not. Because a little later on, I think it was 2004, work was being done, and there was found a little further on, let's say as far as the other door and around the corner, there was found actually that the Pool of Siloam was there. And so the water would have run all that way. It had been blocked off in the Byzantine period. At least somebody else knew it was famous, important, but they didn't have any information archaeologically to know that that was the correct answer. So that's the situation that ensued. So now, and then I'll just tell you another little story, and I didn't bring pictures for that, but let's say we've got the Pool of Siloam. Jesus sent a man to wash his eyes there after he'd put mud on them. A blind man. He regained his sight. And then after that, as this is a larger area, but there was a garden over there. A great big garden. It was just filled up with plants, fig trees galore. Wild, I'm sure many of them were. So, what are you going to do? Well, you just dig and get rid of the trees and go right in there and take care of these other things. But what? It was owned by the Greek Orthodox Church. Churches bought up lots of property if they thought there was something significant about it. And only this year, it could have started last year, but only the last few months, there has been excavation going on there in the effort to discover the continuation of the Pool of Siloam. In other words, to know exactly how large it was. And it looks like it would be extending out into that region. It looks like that. I can't say till it happens, but possibly that's the case, that's what would happen. Okay, there's the first time I walked through. It was a long time ago, in the early 70s, I guess. And that gentleman took me through with his flashlight. I walked in water that would come up to my knees a time or two. Most of the time, it was no higher than that, but maybe once or twice. That's the lowest point. I had to duck there. That's less than 6 feet high. And that's the only place I caught him ducking. So I got his photo there. And that's one of the highest points. That's just before you exit. So what happened was that the people from one end started higher, and then they had to come down. How did they know to do this? The theory is that there were signals that were sent by hitting on the rock outside to let them know. In other words, they let them know by the sound where they were and what movements they should make, which direction they should go. Amazing work. Okay, any questions about that? We're going to another one now. All right, this is at Hazor, back up in the north, 10, 12, 15 miles north of the Sea of Galilee. And Hazor was a very famous city, and the Assyrians, for example, came here in 735. I've used this in another occasion. They came here in 635. In 615, they were at Samaria, not 615, 625, I believe, then they were at Samaria. These dates are a little fuzzy. It's not my mind, it's the dates. And then as you continue south to Lachish, and that ended up about 610. That's how long they were in the country. The point I used before was, think how many cattle they killed. Think how many chickens they killed. How many fields they robbed of the barley and the wheat to feed their horses and to feed the men. That's just the way war is. So, we're at Hazor. Now, at Hazor, the water system is going to be interesting. Where do we get our water? We've got a great big tell. It is big, a big mound. And so, where do we get our water? Well, they could go off and walk off and bring water back, somewhere. And they discovered the water level at a distance from the tell. Then they have a pit in the tell that goes down as far as the water level. So when they got down to the water level, they then had water coming in, seeping in from the water source. See, smart way to do things. So now they have water. They're not dependent on going outside with the possibility that an enemy is going to come and take them before they can get back with the water bucket. All right, let's take a look at some of the things in this picture. Here are steps, right here, going down. Steps here, right here. And then this goes all the way down. There is a kind of a rounded area. In other words, kind of like at a fire station. And it goes on down, and they can go down as far as the bottom if they need to get the water, or to put it in buckets and have it pulled up. All right, what about if they can't do that? I don't think I did that. Maybe I did. What about if the water is high? That's when the boys say, "Could I get the water today?" Because you don't have to work as much. When I was a kid, our water supply was in one of those wells that was drilled, that was about this wide. A casing was put in. And we had one of those buckets like this. And when you dropped it into the well, and then when the rope was pulled, that closed it. So you let it drop in, fill up with water, and then bring it up. And then that was a quarter mile from the house, and then I had to take the bucket back. I preferred taking the bucket to the well. That was pretty hard. A lot of water in that. It's heavy. And that's the way they got their water into the city. How about that? Smart people, right? Okay, God's people. What did God tell His people about the country they would get? You're going to get a country that has in it cisterns that you did not dig. See? All right, so that meant already the water has to be stored up. Cisterns you didn't dig. And we're going to see some of those as well. This is at Megiddo. At Megiddo, they also had a spring outside the city wall. still there today. You walk down, if you want to go, you walk down a tremendous amount of curved steps and go down to this modern boardwalk. But sure, it was not like that in Bible times. If the water is high, you don't have to go as far. You might even be able to draw water like we're talking about. But if there's a gentleman about halfway down there, not part of my group. I don't know who he is. I might not have been with the group that day. But that leads to the spring. And then from there, you have steps going up to the outside, where hopefully your ride is waiting for you. So it's a very nice thing to do. It's included in admission. Now, admission to these national parks is included on cards that you can get that tell you you can visit so many places. If you're on a tour, the tour guide will already have these ready for you, or will buy them at the first stop you make, which usually will be Caesarea, and everybody will get their card, and then it'll be punched every place you go, good for about 2 weeks' time. Now we go to Gezer. And Gezer, we looked at a gate there too. Does anyone recall a passage about Solomon building things like that? The Bible says, 1 Kings 9 and verse 15, Solomon built the gate at Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer. And they all had these famous water systems as well. So we already looked at the other part, and now we come here. So we looked at the Gezer. I think it was a 4-chamber gate. We think it was to the time of Solomon. But there was had to be some kind of water supply. So what was that water supply? How did we get to it? Well, this only started in about 2016, this effort. There might have been a little effort a long time ago. Some of the archaeological work at these sites goes back to the early 1900s. But it's become much more sophisticated, of course. And so now there's a plan to do these things. And when you look at this part, that's looking outside to the opening. And then when you turn around and you see this now, what's there, this deep chasm. I have not seen this since it's been cut. I hope to see it next month. So while you're having class next month, or vacation from class, whichever, I hope to be seeing that. And this is the way this looks on a diagram. I understand that it is 145 feet to the water source. In other words, from the left side over there, when you look at the entrance and you walk down, I've heard a presentation before they got this deep, and have seen some of the pictures in some of those areas. There were steps there. And then going all the way down, and then here's the water supply down here. It's underneath the city. So that was a sort of protection. But they had to go outside in order to get to the water. So on a lot of these, they had to go outside. That was, not the best thing ever, but it worked. And you see a side view of it here at the bottom of the diagram. Gezer has something else that's interesting. Gezer there have been this many found, 13. I know that's not 13, but I could do it like this, I suppose, right? Okay, there have been 13 boundary stones found around Gezer. There's still questions about that, but they go all the way around the big tell. Gezer was on the international highway. What do we mean by that? What was the international highway? What? Not the Kings was in Jordan, going south through Transjordan. This was the one that came down to approximately the Sea of Galilee and then cut over to the coast and went down through that way. It actually went a little further south and then went through the plain of Sharon and the plain of Philistia. And there were other connections, like coming from Jericho up into the Benjamin Plateau and then across Ajalon and so on. So it all connected. And this is where Gezer was located. So it was a really significant city because of being on that main highway between what great powers? All right, Egypt to the south and to the north. Syria would be one, and another would be, go further, Assyria, and another would be Babylon, and another would be Persia. Look at that. And they live close to that. Now, I don't mean close enough to cause a traffic jam. I mean, the road didn't go right by the tell. But from this city, you can stand on the tell, and you can look out at the Mediterranean Sea, probably less than 10 miles away. So it's rather interesting to be able to see that like that. And 13 of these stones that tell a name of someone, and then also have the word a boundary of Gezer. I don't find Gezer on this one. Usually they're written on two sides. But I have seen one. I have an old slide of one that you can make out Gezer very clearly on it. So some of them do, some of them do not. Okay, so we know where we are when we find that. What would be the best possible way to identify a site? Well, at Gibeon, we found the name of a man who had a vineyard at Gibeon. See, it tells the name of the place. And so if you read that, otherwise, how are we going to find out where a place is? I mean, in the Bible, but how are we going to find it? And so that was rather significant. This is way over on Paul's journeys at Antioch of Pisidia, and that's aqueduct, and you don't see any of the pipes or actually, which would be pottery, but this is all what kind of work? Stonework. See, even there, stonework. And this is one that is well known, and if you visit Israel, you will see this. Well, 99 out of 100 you will. That you will see this, and this is the Caesarea Aqueduct. In this picture, on the left is the Mediterranean Sea. On the right would be the country. So this is right along the Mediterranean. Your view is, let me see which view you're looking. I think you are looking north. You're looking south. You're looking south here. And you have two portions of wall. Do you see that there are two portions? There's a low one here. Well, even up above, there's more. And, it's broken. You see that? Let me get the right button here. You see, here's one. Come on. That's it. See, there's one. See where the water ran? Right there. And then here's the other over here. It's lower than that one. Now, there's also a low aqueduct that is closer, that's further away from the water. And look who built these. Hadrian in 130 AD built the one on the left. The one that's highest was built by Herod the Great. The water comes from a source about 6 to 8, maybe 10 miles away. And you can literally go to that place, but it's not good to walk around in it. I found it, given instructions that I had. It was not easy to find it even then, until you find it, and then it's easy. And so I looked where it was, and I saw all these briars and all the things that were growing there, but I knew it was there. How do you think I knew it was there? And this is a clue that I gave away previously when we were talking about plants. What do you think's growing up where the water still is running? What kind of tree? I'll give you 3 letters. What? Fig tree. That's a good choice. Fig tree. And if you see a fig tree growing somewhere in a dry-looking field or along the side of a tell, just say to your friends, "Oh, there's a well over there." You'll impress them. Okay. Cisterns. We'll have to go as soon as the bell rings, right? Oh, yeah, we've got 5 minutes. Is that right, Joe? You don't know. Well, I'm looking at 16 till, 6 till rather. And so the promised land had hewn cisterns. See you next time. I'm making up for those times I kept you over. I had an agreement with my students all the time. I would start class on time, and they would get out on time. Good arrangement. Good to see you.